All right, so we're back. We're actually working on some truck mods today. So I picked up a Midland radio for the truck, and we're gonna work on installing it and actually getting things mounted permanently now. I haven't seen really too many installs specifically on a 2012 Nissan Xterra, so I'm gonna show mine off. I think I've got a really good routing for the antenna cable, which is what I was nervous about. So I'll show you guys that. And if you guys got any better suggestions, let me know down below. All right, so let's get to the install. All right, so you can actually see where I'm gonna mount the radio. It's nice out of the way, and then I can mount this cable right here in front of the shifter so it's not in the way all the time. Now this right now is just stuck to the dash, and it's probably gonna fall off again, so that actually does have screws. I'm just going to run those screws in. I'm gonna pull the center console and the radio so that I can drill, and I'm not gonna hit anything that I don't wanna hit. I don't really wanna do this with everything mounted. All right, so we're gonna start by removing the center console because I know that's where I wanna mount my radio cable, and then I'm gonna eventually move down, probably remove this center console, that way I can route cables back and forth. And then also I need to pull this out, which means I probably need to pull this out, which means I probably need to pull this out. So we're gonna do some Googling, and we're gonna start removing. All right, so as you just saw, we got the center console out. I've already kind of poked around, and it looks like there's plenty space on the back side for us to run the screws that came with our mounting solution. So that's what I'm gonna do. I've already looked behind here, felt behind here, and there's nothing in this section, and there's nothing in this section. So we are totally safe to run a screw in there, which I think we're gonna do this side. That way, like I said, my cable drapes across here and kind of out of the way. I know it's gonna sound like it's more of a mess, but if it's over here, it kind of droops down, gets in the footwell, and I don't really like that. So over here is gonna be out of the way. The kit comes with 3 what looks like self-tapper screws, and it held everything in place very well. I've already gone on multiple trips, and this holds great. All right, so the radio is officially mounted. All right, so it looks like most of the stuff just pops right out. And then once I pop this out, I've actually got a top-down view of the side panel, which is where I want to mount my radio, which I think would be plenty enough for what I'm going to do. I have all of the room in the world over here to work. And I think I've actually got really good access. Now, I thought I had really good access to run wires behind here, but somebody's already cut the panels back here, which I'm not really worried about, but that gives me pretty good access anyway. So I think I'm just going to mount the radio, and then we will work on running the wires through here in a minute. Now, I need to sit down and I need to set this radio somewhere, but I do want to make sure I've got room right here for my communications to plug in. And then we will mount this, and then once we mount this, then we can start worrying on running wires. I was about to go see if I had hardware that would go in both sides of these slots and then put a nut on the back, but then I realized I'm actually going to be running into the little pockets that go right here on the center console if I get one that's too long. And then I've got to put the nut on there, get out the angle grinder, cut that short. I don't really want to do that. So the kit came with one more self-tapper, and it looks like you're really meant to put it right here. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I don't know if this is going to hold, so I'm going to put it on there. I'm gonna get a little aggressive with this. If it pulls out, it pulls out. I don't normally pull out, but in this case, if it's gonna pull out, I need to know that it's gonna pull out now so that I can really lock things in. All right, so what I've done is I put one screw through here. Problem is, it's going to allow it to walk, and once I actually put the device on here, I'm going to have 2 cables coming through the carpet underneath here, and I don't want this to rotate and put pressure on those cables. I want this to be flush. I'm going to drill 2 small holes on both sides of those slots, and then I'm going to run a zip tie through it. Now, this is not how I should do it, but I don't really feel like running to the hardware store, and that will stop it from clocking back and forth and then resting on the cable, which is what I don't want. So that's what I'm gonna do. All right, so this is what I've got. Like I said, I'm not exactly proud of the zip ties, but it does work. This thing doesn't clock like it was before, and now you can see what I was talking about, where I'm going to be having the cables run, and I don't really want this resting up against the carpet. It actually looks like I might have gotten it a little bit close to this hump right here. Going back and forth, I want to do next, but I think I'm going to start by running my antenna cable behind the dash and over to the unit, and that'll kind of help me figure out exactly how I need to run my power cable. All right, so as I mentioned before, I've ran my antenna cable behind the dash, and what that did is that led me right back here. I'm going to grab the cable so you can kind of see it. This is the cable right here. I don't really have it tied up nice and neat. I do plan to do that once I get my power cable back here, but just to let you know, you can run your cable there. Oh, and I should have mentioned this. This is just the glove compartment. It's just got two tabs. You can just bow this in very carefully on both sides and it pops right out. I've actually also removed the screws up here, but you don't need to do those, although this popping out and flexing does give you a little bit more room. So what you can do then is you can take your antenna cable and snake it right back here. You can actually see light on the other side of the truck, and that little hole is where I just ran my cable. So that is where somebody has cut the carpet before, which makes my install very easy. Would I recommend you to do it? No, but my guess is something with the blend air door has went bad before, because I'm pretty positive the left side is messed up. So that might explain why this has been cut. But other than that, as you can see, I do have my cable ran across here. I do have a ton of excess cable. I've got some bundled up in here, but I don't really want a bunch of stuff in here with these linkages moving around. So I'm actually going to stop there and bundle that up behind the dash, because there's not as much moving around behind the dash. All right, so this update has taken me some time. This is the fuse panel for all the interior bits. So for instance, if you have the lockers, you'll have your fuse here, your radio, and that is what I wanted to power off of. So I actually used this little guide right here that was actually the panel for this fuse cover, and it told me that the radio was in a 10 amp slot. So I found that 10 amp slot, put my added fuse in, and I actually had to go get two different style fuses for that. Luckily I had those lying around. So now I've got a little power cable coming off for my communications. All right, so I just got the power wire connected, and this is actually a male and female connector here that I've then wrapped up in electrical tape because it was just exposed metal, and there is some other exposed metal back here that I don't really want to touch. So I wrapped it up nice so that if I ever need to disconnect this, I can, but it's obviously safe to touch things. So now I just got to run this bundle behind the dash into the center console, and then I can connect our power cable over here. And this, I think I'm going to hard connect just because I don't really need to remove this, and this can actually unplug from the... All right, so a little bit, yet a lot has happened since the last update. So first of all, the rig is all wired up. I tapped into my power wire, which I ran from the added fuse. So this is just a butt connector that I've then crimped together, wrapped in electrical tape just to make sure that nothing shorts out. And then as far as my ground, there's a bunch of things in here where you could ground to chassis, but instead I went to a structural piece of metal underneath the cab. Here you can see there's a bunch of metal in here, so I actually just went and took a ground right up there to one of the metal bolts. So that means we now have antenna, we have power, we have ground, and it's switch power. Therefore when I hit the switch, I get power. So everything works just as it should. Testing. Well, I'm gonna run this for a little bit, and if there's any issues, I will definitely update it in the comments of the video. So yeah, I'm pretty confident in this setup though, so I think this should go well.